This is part 2 of the immigration from Ireland. This is the 6-day train trip from Canada to Illinois. And where we left off in part 1 was this picture right here, where James West Jr. landed in Point Levie across from Quebec City in Canada after a 12-day ocean journey. And he had time to write a letter to the family and send it off, and now the journey continues. So at 3 p.m. he got off the boats here, and then he got on the train by 8 p.m. on the 25th of October. And so let's look at the route that he took. So this map is from the Grand Trunk Railroad in Canada, and it is, here you see the St. Lawrence Seaway where he came in, and this is Point Levie circled. It's the 25th, and the yellow covers the train route he took, and we're talking about a slow train, and he's in second class coach the whole way for 6 days. This is Montreal. He goes by Toronto here, and then here's where he does the border crossing from Canada into the U.S. Here's Chicago, and then down to Edwardsville. Now, we're really fortunate because we have these Irish letters that were written in 1870 about this journey. And this is letter number 2. And you know the first letter was written on Tuesday, October 25th, and you can see this one's written on November 22nd. So this is 4 weeks later. So you can bet by the time the parents got this letter, they were wondering what was going on with son James. So let's jump over here real quick first and show you a picture of the train. The trains that the Grand Trunk Railroad in Canada used. And he would have been, this is actually an express train, but he would have had a similar locomotive and just a slower train. So probably not as good as a locomotive, but they would look very, very similar. And so let's cover now some of the points in the letter. And so I highlighted many different points, and so just covering some of them is in the first page he talks about that he passed up Montreal on Wednesday morning, and they had a fine suspension bridge and a 3-mile tunnel under the river. On the train, in that first night, he bought bread and cheese for the multiple-day journey. There was plenty of water and fire in the rail cars. That means they had to have like little furnaces that they had fire in each car to keep them warm. He says the train passed by multiple lakes, multiple of the Great Lakes, and he went through most of the biggest cities at night, like Toronto. He said he slept very well in the rail cars versus the ship. At the south end of Lake Huron is the border crossing in the USA from Sarnia, Canada to Port Huron, USA. And we covered that in the map up above. They had to get off the train and ferry across the river and then get back on a continuing train to Chicago. All the luggage was examined at Port Huron and duty tax had to be paid. They were stopped at one place to let an express train pass, and 20 of the passengers were out on the track. The express arrived at full speed, and 2 or 3 people were nearly killed, with one lady escaping with her life by 3 inches. The guards were more worried than the passengers, James said. He said they arrived in Chicago on Sunday morning, October 30th, and had to wait at the station until 6 p.m. Sunday evening for the train to St. Louis. He rode through the night and noticed it was all mostly wooded. Arrived at 7 a.m. in St. Louis. And St. Louis in 1870 looked like this. So he would have crossed a railroad bridge nearby the Eads Bridge, which was the first steel bridge built across the Mississippi by Andrew Carnegie. And that was the stage it was in when he passed that bridge. And then this is Union Station in St. Louis. with all the train tracks. It was a big city then. It was the fourth biggest city in the United States, 300,000 people, very busy rail yard. It cost James 90 cents for the return train to Edwardsville. He arrived at Edwardsville at 9 a.m. on Halloween, which was October 31st. He went to the postmaster and asked for anyone by the name Robert Gray or Moorhead. The postmaster said he knew both and that he should go by a store and inquire if anybody was in from that area that day. No one was, so he started down a footpath toward the Moorhead and Gray farms, and ran, after a half hour, ran into somebody named George McCune and asked him what time it was. And then George said, well, where are you going and where are you from? And he said where he was going, and he said, well, they live a quarter mile from me. And he said, hey, and if you're looking for work, I could use you, and you'll be shocking or gathering corn, and I'll pay you $10 a month. Well, he took him up on that offer, and then he went on, and he mentioned in the letter next that he said, no doubt by the time you get this, you will think I have forgotten to write you. Yes, after 4 weeks. When he went on down the path, he said that he saw Sam Moorhead's farm first, and James Moorhead was in the field, and then they went to Aunt Blackburn's on Halloween evening. He then worked with Thomas Moorhead for a week before he started his job with McCune on November 8th. He mentions that they're scarce a Sabbath kept here, they work every day. And then regarding his advice for his father and his family, in the last paragraph, I'm going to read pretty much the whole paragraph here. He says, there's plenty of farms to rent here, but they are not near so good as new and being labored for a long time. The best way to do is if I could get in a crop of wheat next fall, there would then be scarce any food to buy if you would come out in the spring next year. You would have all to buy. It would take a good deal to put in a crop of wheat. And then he mentions hogs are as low as 7 cents per pound alive. Gross weight potatoes are $1 per bushel. Apples the same price. I came 1,525 miles by rail. Tell Nancy not to come out here, for she is better where she is yet. And that's his 22-year-old sister Nancy, second oldest of the kids. And then Father James West, he received the letter, the November 22nd letter in early December, and decided to sell everything and leave for America. He didn't take son James' advice about waiting a year, and he sold everything and left for America in February 1871 aboard the ship the Prussian. They went through Portland, Maine, and then by rail to Edwardsville, a very similar route as their son James, using the Canadian Grand Trunk Railroad. And the end of this immigration story to Edwardsville is that they spent the next 2 years working, renting a farm, working it, and doing well, making money, and things were all going well until, unfortunately, there was a farm accident, we assume, and our immigrant son James, he died on September 27th, 1872, at the age of 27 years. But it was quite a journey he had, and we honor him with the telling of this story and enjoy the letter that he wrote.